Thank you so much for staying with us, everyone. Well, you can join the conversation. What we're talking about is the anti-corruption war. The President, Muhammadu Buhari, and his government says they want to prosecute in the 4-year term they were voted in for by Nigerians. But how far have they gone? The President has lamented that the corruption fight is being slowed down by the process of the court. Well, court, of course, you know, the judicial way to prosecute some of these cases, and the president seems to be frustrated by this. We've been talking to the executive director of Enough is Enough in Nigeria, a civil rights advocacy group, and Yemi Adamolekun is the executive director who has been talking to us. But you were talking to us about the perspective on the way and manner the corruption fight has gone in the last 1 year. Would you say that Nigerians are impressed at all?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the Nigerians are impressed that there's one thing to say you want to do something, and there's another thing to actually do it. So the fact that they're actually going after, I mean, and the numbers that we've heard, I think part of the challenge that Nigerians are just numb to numbers, between millions and billions and trillions. I don't even know, it just sounds like a lot. However, I think what then is a bigger problem is that while we're fighting sort of in a sense past corruption, and it's as if this government is blind to current corruption, if I want to use those terms. And it's really about really basic things. So if you take the economy, for example, we spent 1 year running 2 exchange rates. So some people could buy dollars at 200. Some people had to buy it at whatever rate. You basically created a bunch of millionaires almost legally because you made it possible for there to be that arbitrage. We're still at it now. I think it was just last week that the CBN finally agreed to not manage the exchange rate and let it really float so it can stop somewhere and we'll know, people can plan and know what's going on. And people are not trying to find money from the banks at a low rate and sell it high. So for me, that's just one example of how we're focusing so much. And I mean, I'm not discounting the fact that there was a lot of money that had been stolen and we do need the money. But if you are chasing A and in the process you're losing B, C, D, E, F, G, then the question then comes about at what cost is this fight? And really, what is the end of it? We talked about, I think it was in May, at his State of the Nation address that he talked about, he's going to give us names and numbers. We've gotten numbers. Nobody has been able to tell us, okay, all this money that you've supposedly gotten back, is that money being frozen? Because nobody I know has said, okay, I'm doing a plea bargain. This is how much I'm handing over. The government will collect it, register whatever, without claim of guilty or not guilty, whatever it is, so that we can move on. There's still not one case that's been completed, not one, at least that I'm aware of. Maybe I missed some. So it just keeps, we're now in July, almost August. Nobody has gone to jail. No money that's not a function of being frozen that we've actually gotten back, that we're plowing either into roads or education or health or whatever it is. So it just makes it all very confusing.
All right, just a moment, Yemi. Let me go to Abuja, where the chairman of the coalition, the Civil Society Coalition Against Corruption, Mr. Olariwaju Suraj, joins us now. He's a lawyer. And he's there. Well, good to see you, Mr. Suraj. A lot of people are of the opinion that since the Administration of Criminal Act was signed into law by the past administration, there's a lot of joy in so many people's heart that there will be speedy prosecution of corrupt cases. But the president has lamented and said, look, that has not really even helped, because we have seen a lot of sluggish prosecution of criminal cases or corrupt cases, as the case are.
Yeah, the president is actually not too far from the truth. The expectation of everybody, looking at the level of corruption in the country is to the extent that you want to see a very quick process of prosecution and possibly conviction. But the unfortunate situation is that you have such a corrupt system that actually not only is limited to the criminal suspects. You have such a challenge even with legal practitioners, and you have the same thing with the judicial system, to the extent that you can't even predict what is going to be the body language of even the judges and then also the lawyers. Unfortunately, the law is not actually being utilized as a social re-engineering to the extent that lawyers and legal practitioners understand that the fact to the extent that they also have an allegiance not only to the Constitution but also to the state over and beyond that of the client, to the extent that you don't assist a criminal suspect to escape the harm of the law. You can only assist such a criminal suspect if within the available material evidence to get linear justice from the system, and to the extent that the system ultimately benefits from such process. But what you have seen is a continuation, especially in the administration of criminal justice, of the past, to the extent that people don't want to actually change. And you will see that with the recent also dismissal. Well, it is called retirement, but it is actually dismissal of a judge of the High Court in the person of Justice Yunusa, who was actually in the habit of granting perpetual injunction against anti-corruption institutions, which is against the law, which is also against the decision of appellate courts, in the sense that no court has the power to actually in any way stop anti-corruption agencies, law enforcement agencies from performing their statutory duties. So there's no amount of the effectiveness of the anti-corruption agencies, the ICPC, EFCC, police, if you still don't have an upright judicial system and you don't have lawyers who are also ready to assist the system to function. What you will have is a continuous process of this back and forth from the court. And like you rightly said in your prologue, the courts are still not yet living up to the provisions of the Criminal Administration of Criminal Justice Act, which says that corruption trials would have to go on daily basis.
But let me quickly come in here, because a lot of Nigerians, for example, who are not lawyers, give us a basic and a layman understanding of explanation, rather, of how long naturally would a case be, for example, for someone who has been charged to court for stealing, for example, ₦1 billion. How long could that case go at the first court of approach?
Yeah, I mean, for it shouldn't. After the investigation process of the anti-corruption agencies can even last for a period of 1 year, 2 years, depending on the complex nature of the corruption case in particular. But once the evidence are gathered and you have the defense and the prosecution counsel diligently prosecuting the case, it shouldn't take more than 6 months at the court of first instance. And you have the reference when you also look at cases outside this country. Look at the Buhari case, for instance. These were cases that spread over between the period of 6 months and 1 year, and conviction is already also secured. And that is even with several attempts by Buhari to actually hide from the fact. But then the lawyer to Buhari had to immediately convince him and advise him that, you know, the best you can do in this instance is to plead guilty rather than looking for technicalities. And in that jurisdiction, you can't use technicalities. Even the lawyers will be sanctioned. I mean, even the lawyer of Buhari was also imprisoned. He was prosecuted and also convicted for actually hiding fact and evidence. So for the first instance, it shouldn't take more than maximum. It would be a year. But in Nigeria, you can see cases running for 7-8 years. Yeah. As we speak, one
will perhaps see the frustration of President Muhammadu Buhari in this case. But let's take a moment. We'll go on another break. My two guests are there, one in Lagos, one in Abuja, giving perspectives, legal and civil rights perspectives on this matter. We'll be right back to put our closing remarks on this matter. Join us again.